A very good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
Welcome to our workshop, Minding My Own Business. It was originally a workshop on entrepreneurship for women, but eventually some people said, but make the man them come too. So we will have some men, we already have some men with us. We will be starting with a brief devotional exercise led by education and leadership development for what is now US, but once upon a time, us. But for what was once upon a time the United Society for the Propagation of the Gospel. Evie is a UTC graduate. She was the first person to graduate with a PhD from UTC, and she also started our HIV and AIDS program in a seminary. So she is a pioneer, and I gather is up to other mischief in England and beyond. She will be assisted by Mrs. Oknakuwenga, who is the head of the Moravian Women's Fellowship. She will lead the, she will read the scripture, and we're going to sing a good revival.
This side of St. Andrew, because I spent about 7 years at Hope Valley, so I used to roam through before it was developed, so we would walk through the plum fields where the UA field is. Before that was developed, we would go through Hope River, walk up to Taban, we would walk all over the place. In fact, when I was 4 years old, I decided, one day my parents didn't come for me, and I decided I would walk home at 4, and I got terribly lost and ended up in some plum bush somewhere on the UA campus. And Professor Chevans found me because his daughters went to Hope Valley as well. But I'm very happy to be here, and I first want to congratulate UTCWI and the credit union for putting this on. And I'm happy you said you invited the men, because I felt I would have been a little marginalized. But I hope the men are here for the workshop and not just to set up the technical things at the back. They're here for the workshop?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, good. But a workshop such as this is critically important, targeting women, because the women, as you all know, represent the majority of the heads of our households in Jamaica and bear the burden, the majority of the economic burden of supporting our families in our country. And in a sense, it is also an indictment to some extent on the men, but that's a different conversation. But the reality is, most of our households are led by women who, as Evie mentioned, in many cases, I don't know how the majority of Jamaican women do it, but they find a way to support their children, put food on the table, and have jobs, but yet still play the role of homemakers. So I think a workshop like this is critical because it's about empowering women. It's about changing a mindset which, unfortunately, the education system which we adopted from England geared and trained us to prepare ourselves for jobs in a traditional civil service. That's the education system that we inherited, which has evolved and changed somewhat over time. But we have never placed enough of an emphasis, certainly within our education system, on teaching and facilitating entrepreneurship, to encourage persons not just to think about how you can get the next job, but to think about an opportunity that you can create for yourself and convert that into a business which allows you to make money. And there's nothing wrong with making money, and there's nothing bad about doing so, because that is how you gain your independence, which is vitally important, and that is how you are in a position to support your families. As Marjorie said, we have a retreat today, an eGov retreat, where we're going to be discussing a number of things, some related to this, about how we can use technology to facilitate persons to empower their lives. And I just want to share with you one thing that we're doing as a government, which may be of interest to those of you who are technologically inclined. And the way technology has evolved, you don't need to be a quote-unquote techie to participate in the opportunities that exist within what I call this digital economy. But we're working on putting together a ecosystem around innovation and entrepreneurship, primarily for persons who have ideas and who want to build, whether they be applications, solutions, which can solve a particular problem. But with the internet economy, it gives you an immediate audience to the entire globe. So for example, how many of you have heard of an application called Candy Crush? Yeah? Anybody heard of another one called Flappy Birds? Yeah? The guy who made the Flappy Bird application, how many of you, let me ask you this question. Guess how much money this guy was making on a daily basis, the Flappy Bird's inventor?
Before or after?
Before, he shut it down because it just had become too successful. He was making up to 50,000 US dollars a day on an application, just a simple application that you use on your phone and you play around with it. I only use that example because it demonstrates the extent to which there is an opportunity in this global digital economy for persons who can come up with creative ideas that can solve problems. But in the case of a Flappy Bird, it was just a game which people latched onto. But the digital economy has eliminated the barriers to entry. This guy comes from Vietnam. And over the last 3 years in Vietnam, they have developed an industry where they're employing thousands of persons in this area. Vietnam has no more talent or skills than Jamaica does. And what we hope to do is to put in place what I would call the enabling environment to facilitate Jamaicans who want to build applications, who want to build solutions, and who can access the global economy. Because you can sit right here with access to the internet, with access to computer technology, and you can develop a solution which is placed on whether it's the Apple or Android or any other platform, and you have an immediate audience of billions of people worldwide. So that's the good side of it. The bad side of it is that everybody else is trying to do the same thing, and we are not unique here. So what we're doing two things. One, we're creating an incubator called Startup Jamaica, which will allow persons who come in with good ideas to be put through a process, a 6-month process, where they'll be mentored, nurtured, given advice and guidance, and move them from just having an idea to where at the end of the 6-month period they can be closer to having an established business. The second thing that we're doing, the Development Bank of Jamaica is working on what we call the venture capital ecosystem. And what venture capital is, it allows individuals or companies to invest in either an individual or company in the non-traditional way, not going to a bank to borrow money where you have to have collateral, but someone who would put equity in your company and take a stake out of it. The reason that is important is the vast majority of Jamaicans who may have good ideas, who may have come up with a solution, find it very difficult to access financing. Because if you go to a traditional financial institution, if you're unable to provide the collateral, you're not going to be in a position to get a loan. And what the venture capital project will do is create a fund, which some of it would be provided by the government through the Development Bank of Jamaica, but also from private institutions that may see this as an opportunity to broaden their portfolio. Hopefully some of the financial institutions that have gained a lot of their profits from placing their money in government paper will look at this as a way of investing in Jamaicans. So that will allow persons to access funding for some of their ideas. So we'll have the incubator, which provides the mentorship, support, and the nurturing, and then we will have this venture capital fund, which will put you in a position where these ideas can be financed. Because one of the challenges with any entrepreneurial venture, if you're unable to devote the time because you have a day job that you provides your income, it's very difficult to move the idea to the next level. And the funding will facilitate that. So we are, from the perspective of our ministry, technology, looking at all the ways in which we can utilize and leverage the technology. I mean, there are many other simpler forms that you can look at. For any idea that you develop, any entrepreneurial solution, even if you're not a techie and you don't want to build a website, it's easy to go on platforms like a Facebook, which are very simple to use. And you can put that product or that service out there so that persons can find out about what you are offering. Much cheaper, much broader reach than printing 1,000 flyers and trying to distribute them, as an example. So there are practical ways in which you can utilize the technology to inform persons about any idea or any solution that you may have, and for you to reach a broader audience. So I want to encourage you, as you go through the workshop today, in the ideas that you may come up with at the end of the day, to think about how technology can facilitate those ideas, to think about how you can utilize the technology. And the technology has evolved to a state where, as I mentioned before, it doesn't require people with high technical capabilities to participate in this global economy. So again, I'm happy that a seminar such as this is being hosted, particularly for women. I hope at the end of today's proceedings, many of you would be empowered to think about some of your own entrepreneurial ideas, and not just to think about it, but to move it to a stage where you can actually develop some business or some solution which provides an opportunity for your own economic empowerment. Thank you.
Special ceremony regarding that, and that has to do with animation. Jamaica has a lot of artists, and currently CARIMAC has been working with another organization, remind me of the name of it now, with Sinclair. No, with the one with Sinclair.
Oh, yes.
Services. We went to the graduation ceremony just across the road of CARIMAC is the media department of the University of the West Indies. They looked around to see where there were job opportunities, and one of the areas is in animation. I have never seen such a small graduation ceremony with so many ministers of government, which I think was a signal of the importance of this. 28 people graduated from the Mona campus, and later 15 from the Montego Bay campus. We had the Minister of Finance who was speaking, Honorable Julian, Minister of Education, representative of the World Bank, PIOJ, and a number of other people, because this is a big global business. So CARIMAC is actually doing short courses, 6-month courses and so on. They hope eventually to have a degree. And all the graduates were employed on the spot, because that is the scale of the animation business. Now, of course, since I'm a pastor, I was thinking other things too. You know, I have preached a sermon for or two of an hour's length, but the youth them not listen to that. Those days are over. People have their Blackberries out while you're preaching, and you can't always tell what is happening. It was Reverend J. Oliver Daly who said he was very annoyed he saw somebody with a Blackberry when he was preaching, and it turned out he had quoted some statistics, and they were checking the statistics to see if he was accurate in what he was saying. And sometimes scripture is read from the Blackberry. So when people take out the Blackberry in church, a lot of things can be happening at the same time. This is the world we are in. So if we are going to effectively spread the gospel, we need to reach everybody and every language. So as you know, I support the translation into the Jamaican language, but some people, their language is IT.